At a time when tourism is undergoing a profound transformation, it is vital to revisit how this core sector of the European economy and a core aspect of the European identity, if I may say, can contribute to achieving the sustainability goals set by the European Green Deal. The pandemic seems to have catalyzed a cultural shift in terms of why, when, and how we travel, giving rise to new emerging trends such as transformative travel, proximity travel, remote working destinations, post-cultural tourism, and wellness travel. More and more, holidaymakers are becoming more conscious about the impact and the carbon footprint of their travel, and they seek deeper purpose and connection with their destinations. At the same time, climate change and extreme weather events such as heat waves, wildfires, and floods are affecting travelers' choices and safety, while accelerating rates of digital transformation continue to alter every experience within the travel industry. Despite an understandable tendency to return back to normal after the pandemic, the harsh realities faced in many tourist destinations no longer allow a business as usual approach. Over-tourism, environmental degradation, and economic vulnerability of tourist-dependent regions are fueling public debate about the need to respect the carrying capacity of fragile destinations, their ecosystems, and their communities. In some overexploited territories suffering from seasonal stop-and-go tourism, the overconsumption of natural resources, waste generation, and pollution are often coupled by phenomena of cultural appropriation, over-folklorization of cultural heritage, and at the end, loss of authenticity. This broken relationship of humanity with planet Earth is reflected in our traveling patterns, and it is a deeply cultural issue. Fixing this relationship requires a transition from a culture of regeneration, from a culture of overexploitation to a culture of regeneration. An initial shift from tourism models characterized by extractivism and depletion of natural and cultural resources to more sustainable models, seeking to generate economic, social, cultural, and environmental gains for all stakeholders, leaving no one behind. At Be.CULTOUR, we try to move beyond sustainability, integrating additional elements to the pillar of sustainability that focus on circularity, resource efficiency, heritage-led transformation, and community engagement. Circular cultural tourism is thus intentionally designed to be regenerative of natural, social, and cultural capital, operating within planetary and local boundaries, the carrying capacity of each destination, but also the acceptability thresholds of each local community. In this context, cultural heritage is not only a core element of tourism attractiveness, but a cornerstone of local identity and pride, a source of community resilience, and a repository of solutions to imagine and create sustainable futures. This diagram aims to explain circularity beyond the three pillars of sustainability, proposing a conceptual framework to move beyond cultural tourism. It serves as a visual map for our discussion today, as we attempt to rethink tourism and regional development in terms of innovative policies, partnerships, and practices. To this end, we are delighted to have with us today a diverse panel of speakers, bringing together different perspectives, from high-level policymaking to regional development, from urban governance to social entrepreneurship. Please join me in welcoming our three distinguished speakers working in the EU policymaking arena, Ms. Kirsti Alamutka, Anne Grady, and Gianluca Saba will join us a bit later, but he will, we hope. Hello, good morning, welcome. We also have two practitioners bringing experience from the regional and local level. Minna Takala joining us from Hami region in Finland. She's replacing the previously announced speaker, Kirsi Sipola, who unfortunately couldn't make it today, but we're very happy to have you here, Ms. Takala. Good morning.
Good morning.
Maria Kapari is joining us from Cyprus as the local winner of the Be.CULTOUR hackathon. And last but not least, we will be joined by Antonia Gravagnuolo from National Research Council of Italy, who is the Be.CULTOUR project coordinator. We're very happy to have you, Antonia. Welcome. And my colleague, Malgorzata Svikla, who will act as keynote listener during the discussion to provide a creative wrap-up and closing reflections at the end of our event. She will be supported, because we're, cultural people, artistic people. We have an illustrator, Mena Wellen, who will perform visual note-taking of this discussion, which will then be included in the Be.CULTOUR guidebook that ICLEI will publish in early 2024. At this point, I would like to express my warm thanks to the National Research Center of Italy and ERRIN, who contributed as co-organizers of this event. The ICLEI team supporting me today in the backstage, notably our head of team, Cristina Garzillo, and our technical host, Joelle Raka, who will now give us a quick overview of the agenda and some logistics to make most of our virtual journey today. Joelle?
Good morning. Yeah, just want to say that the speaker, Antonia Gravagnuolo, had to turn on again the laptop, so she will join in a minute and turn on the camera. So she's coming, and yeah. So good morning, everyone. I just give you a very brief introduction on how the event is divided. We have it divided into rounds of discussion. So at the beginning, we have a brief introduction and the context of today's event, and then we'll focus on the policy framework. At 10 to 11, we have a break, a 10 minutes break, and it's offline, so we have time to stretch our legs, get some fresh air, and refocus. At 11 sharp, we start again for the second round of discussion that will focus this time more on practical examples, and we'll have people from regional governments, city administration, and social enterprise. And we want to keep some time at the end for burning questions, so feel free to use the chat. It's in the bottom right of your screen. And also keep in mind that the flow of the discussion is designed based on the questions you already submit during the registration process. We probably don't have time to address all of them, but we'll try to do our best and to meet your expectation. So in order to make the best out of the online discussion, there's some online tips. So I suggest you to select the speaker view on your screen. You can do it on the upper part of the screen so that you can focus on the person talking. Then you can use the chat to ask questions and also share thought, and you can respond to each other, and also you have the reactions, so you can make the presenters know how your feeling are. I want to tell you that this event is recorded, so will be published on the Be.CULTOUR website and on YouTube. After the event, we'll all of you people, like all registered people, will receive the link with the recording, and as well as other links and relevant resources that our speakers share with us. Last thing I want to tell you, you will see maybe some yellow and red cards from my colleague Stefania, so don't be alarmed. It's just a way to keep track of time for our speakers. And yeah, finally, I want to tell you that that's breakfast, so try not to multitask and focus on what is saying, but at the same time, enjoy your tea, enjoy your breakfast, and have fun. In case you wanna share your thought online, you have the hashtag, the suggested hashtag, and links for the social media. Thank you. I give the floor to Stefania.
Thank you very much, Joelle. Joelle is available if you have any questions or difficulties in the backstage. But now let's finally dive deeper into our topic, starting with an overview of the European Commission's efforts to lead a transition pathway for tourism. Ms. Kirsti Alamutka, Doctor of Technology, works as a policy officer for the European Commission's DG GROW in the Tourism and Textiles Unit. After managing the co-creation process of Transition Pathway for Tourism, she coordinates its follow-up activities and is currently establishing the first stock-taking exercise of its progress. She follows the development of EU tourism statistics and the continuous development of EU tourism dashboard with an objective to support twin transition and resilience building with indicators on economic, environmental, and social sustainability. She follows and supports cultural tourism as an area of tourism which has the key potential to support long-term well-being of local communities while providing versatile and enriching experiences for visitors. Ms. Alamutka, thank you very much for being here today. Tell us, what is the state of play regarding the transition pathway for tourism proposed by the European Commission?
Thank you very much for inviting me here. So good morning to all. I hope you are enjoying your breakfast. I am with you. And thanks for the question. To answer that, I would like to start by reminding that the transition pathway for tourism is not just something that the Commission just proposed. It didn't emerge like that. It was created through a long consultation and collaboration process with the stakeholders. It took almost 8 months. There were 16 workshops, online consultations, a lot of different meetings with public and private stakeholders on European, national, regional, local levels. So the Transition Pathway report shows the result of this co-creation process. So it was done by all of us. And it's also important to remember that these results of the stakeholder co-creation were also very much appreciated by the member states. Actually, the Council established Council conclusions of EU Agenda 2030 for tourism, which is based on these same results and strategic areas. So they are also highlighting policy and governance, green transition, digital transition, resilience, and skills and support for stakeholders. I reminded about this because it's important to remember that the transition pathway started by discussing together, agreeing together on the key areas of actions, and that's why we need to continue also the same way of doing this together to make these goals and actions actually to become a reality. And that's what we have been doing. So concretely, what we have been doing is the first, that we started inviting stakeholders to submit pledges. It was very clear from the very beginning that there can't be explicit actions that everyone is doing the same action with the same result all over the Europe. That's impossible because there is very diverse types of tourism stakeholders. So instead of prescribing actions, we are calling for pledges, which allows every organization to define what they would do and what results they would achieve to support the common objective. This far, we have received over 380 pledges, and almost 180 organizations have committed to supporting the transition pathway. All these are available on our website, and when I check them just before this breakfast, I see that we have, for example, 11 local administrations and 20 regional administrations in there. So you can go and have a look what they are doing and use it as an example and inspiration for your own actions and making your own pledge. We're actually going to even publish more pledges in 2 weeks, so then you will have even more things to see. As a second point, I would like to tell that we have just established an informal Commission expert group that includes 45 persons and organizations that represent different types of tourism stakeholders across the EU. This is an important element in the transition pathway because this group will help us to reach out to different types of stakeholders and also to hear concretely about the different types of current challenges and developments on the ground. And as a third point, we are developing a stakeholder support platform that helps everyone to find more easily any type of resources that exist here and there and in too many places, so that you can find the ones that are most relevant for you to help you to become more green, more digital, or improve the strategies, skills, or inclusivity, for example. With this platform, you should be able to find more easily the knowledge, projects, trainings, funding opportunities, or just to connect with others who are working and struggling with the same issues, or who might actually have a solution that would work for you as well. And then as the last point, I would like to mention, which was already mentioned in my introduction, that we are also preparing a first stock taking now on what actually has happened, what are the achievements that we have now achieved in these first years of the transition pathway. We are doing this stock-taking report and approach in the same collaborative approach that we have been working all the time with the transition pathway. So we are having several consultations, discussing with the stakeholders, and by the end of this year or early next year, we should be having the final report that will be shared with everyone. So then you can read even more concrete examples of what has happened and what you could do.
Wow, that looks like a rather ambitious and complex process. So I think it was also very interesting for you to hear about all this diversity that is in the sector. Could you tell us a bit more about what is the role of cultural heritage in this transition? So have you seen any pledges or any cultural organizations committing themselves? And what kind of objectives do they put? Does this framework really allow them to become ambitious and set the bar high? I don't know if you have some examples you can share, especially from the cultural heritage sector.
Well, I have actually examples that are coming from many sectors, but are linked to cultural heritage. So if we are looking at the cultural heritage, first of all, we need to remember that it is a very important thing for tourism. When we look at the Eurobarometer that we implemented 2 years ago, we saw that 44% of the European citizens say that the cultural offerings are among the most important factor when they choose their destination. So cultural heritage is important thing for attracting people to your destination. And of course, then it would be important to be managing it in a sustainable manner so that the visitors would be contributing to the maintenance and to the well-being of the cultural heritage, both intangible and intangible assets, and the well-being of the citizens, their practices and their local way of life. When we have a look at the issue from the transition pathway perspective, if we take, for example, the green transition, it's important that the developments around the cultural heritage would be minimizing the environmental impacts, such as waste or pollution. We see, for example, that there are heritage homes that are being established on the rural areas as accommodations, and we see them aiming to be sustainable, applying for EU eco-label so that they can monitor and reduce their environmental impact. This is a concrete thing that can be done. Another type of a tool that could be used for services developed around cultural heritage are the tools that are given by the EMAS, the EU Eco Management and Audit Scheme, that can help to track and reduce the environmental impact. In our current transition pledges, we have also approaches on developing sustainable mobility to reach the cultural heritage sites with soft or shared mobility, or even using the transport heritage infrastructure, old rail tracks, for cycling and improving cycling accessibility to different heritage sites, and that allows enjoying nature and heritage at the same time. For example, Pays de la Loire region aims to have all their destinations accessible by green means of transport by 2030, which is nice and ambitious objective. If looking at the digital transition, here, first of all, I would like to remind you about the recommendation of the Cultural Heritage Database that was published 2 years ago. In this recommendation, the Commission called the Member States to digitize in 3 Ds all the monuments and sites which are considered as cultural heritage under risk. And half of those cultural heritage monuments that are considered as the most physically visited. This is an ambitious recommendation, and the member states are asked to report in 24 months after publication, which means by end of this year. So it will be interesting to follow the progress of that. in our transition pathway pledges, we actually have SMEs, for example, Artur from Slovenia, that is supporting the digitization of the cultural heritage. And then we have pledges that are supporting through digital tools the visibility, online visibility and knowledge about the cultural heritage, the hidden gems available. For example, CULTOUR from RR Vision in Spain or Smart Guide from the Czech Republic. So we do have pledges that relate to the cultural heritage, its accessibility, its visibility. And under the resilience pillar, the key issue is about having resilient strategies for tourism, which consider really the long-term well-being of the locality and its residents. And of course, this must include the cultural fabric of the local community and building of the cultural unique assets. So there are issues relating to monitoring the carrying capacity, possibly limiting number of visitors, and I would even suggest targeting more responsible audiences to receive fewer visitors, but those ones that are good also for the heritage and not damaging for them. There are, for example, destinations which are aiming to have regular resident satisfaction surveys that will show the resilience aspect of the locality as a whole towards the visitors and acceptance rates for that. Part of the resilience is also the capacity to adapt, innovate and change as needed, and there the cultural heritage really could be in a key role, building strategies and business based on what is culturally unique and valuable. There we don't have any pledges yet, but I would really like to see pledges, and maybe you can create them about going from visiting sites in order to take pictures to really go having concrete interactions with the other cultural perspective, personally meeting and feeling the other cultures, with workshops relating to local intangible heritage like handicrafts, food, dance. I would come there wherever you have a traditional dance workshops. I would come and participate myself, and yeah, also chasing.
Some relevant examples during our discussion today. You gave us a very nice overview of this transition pathway, the digital aspect, the green aspects, and also this inclusivity and resilience that is not so easy always to measure and plan. But indeed, I think we have a lot of stakeholders with us today that should check this platform and join the pledges, raise the ambition, and also join this community of stakeholders that is co-creating also at the policy level what a transition pathway for tourism is. So we will share also here in the chat resources and also links, useful links in the follow-up email, so that you can all explore these policy developments and take part. Thank you, Ms. Alamutka. We'll come back to you during discussions. I can see already some burning questions here, so have a look. And now I will turn to Ms. Anne Grady to further explore the interlinkages that you mentioned also between climate change, cultural heritage conservation, and the circular economy. So Ms. Anne Grady, welcome. You are a seconded expert from the National Museum of Ireland to the Cult Committee of the European Parliament. Amongst her duties, Ms. Grady coordinates and assists members in drafting legislative and non-legislative reports and opinions, defines policy lines, and advises the European Commission's proposals related to cultural heritage. She also ensures the continuation of the legacy of the European Year of Cultural Heritage, which was in 2018, as well as raising awareness of sustainability and, in particular, sustainable cultural tourism and the impact of climate change on cultural heritage. She's joining us today in a personal capacity, bringing a wealth of experience from an international arena. Thank you for joining us. Joelle, now I will be sharing your presentation, so give me 1 second and we will get back to you immediately. So here we are. The floor is yours. Just make sure you unmute yourself, please.
Thank you for this opportunity, because it's a very timely and I think interesting workshop. And incidentally, I really like your title. So moving on to the European Union's competency in relation to cultural heritage, and this is my next slide, please. So what does the European Union do in relation to heritage? It assists and complements the actions of the 27 member states in preserving and promoting Europe's cultural heritage. How does it do this? It supports and promotes policy collaboration between the member states and the stakeholders. And it has a number of different funding programmes. Some you'll be familiar with, like Creative Europe, the European Capitals of Culture, and of course the big research and development programme, Horizon Europe. So what I want to talk about, and this is on my next slide, please, is an open method of coordination working group. And this was formed under the last work plan for culture. And it basically looks at cultural heritage and climate change. And the title is Strengthening Cultural Heritage Resilience for Climate Change. And the mandate's directly linked to the SDG, Take Urgent Action Now to combat climate change and its impacts. 55 experts joined this working group, and they're from a whole diverse range. We had people from institutions, we had people from museums, libraries, archives, agencies, and a very enthusiastic bunch of people. And I was very honoured to lead this particular group, and our chair was the eminent Dr. Johanna Lesner from Germany. So moving on, what's the objectives of this particular group? What do we want to do? Well, basically, we wanted to exchange and exchange information and good practices and what's happening on the ground in relation to protecting cultural heritage. And this is both the tangible and the intangible. Looking at the current and emerging threats and the impacts of climate change on culture. And what can we learn from cultural heritage? Is there anything we can learn? Is there any inspiration out there? And indeed we did, we found it. And it's in line, of course, overall, and you mentioned this earlier, with the European Green Deal's goals. So the outcomes of our group is to lead to awareness raising, capacity building, and produce a set of recommendations. But really importantly is to have discussions about climate change and its impact on culture at a worldwide, European, national, regional level. So we thought long and hard what we were going to do and put on the cover of our report. And this image is a very strong, visible message. You don't often see the Acropolis under snow. And this was taken in February 2022. And it comes across again the whole arena, the whole concept of climate change and cultural heritage. So as part of our deliberations, what we did is we put together 83 case studies from 25 countries. But these case studies mainly, not all, but mainly relate to tangible cultural heritage. And a third of those are about research projects. So what we found from the case studies is, of course, culture is threatened by the climate crisis, but it also offers solutions and inspiration. The role of research and innovation is really important, as is a multidisciplinary approach. Many, not all, but many traditional buildings are sustainable and climate friendly. When we say traditional buildings, we don't just mean listed and protected structures, we also mean vernacular architecture as well. And it's more climate friendly to upgrade, repair, adapt, reuse buildings rather than demolish and rebuild. And this enables a circular economy. And of course, continuous monitoring and maintenance is vital.
So we see that in this, the work of this working group has led to an extensive report. We will share also the link here so that people can have a better look. Please. Can you come up with some of the most relevant examples, some striking examples of cultural heritage organizations or even local authorities that are, managing this transition and addressing issues of climate change in their cultural heritage policies?
Yes, certainly. So on to my next slide, please. Yeah. And of course, coming from Ireland, I'm going to talk about one of the case studies from Ireland, Skellig Michael. It's in the southwest of Ireland. It's managed by the Office of Public Works. And this case study relates to the Office of Public Works and all the stakeholders. It's a very attractive tourist destination. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and its popularity has increased immensely because it was also used for a film location for 2 Star Wars films. It's an island and it's 13 kilometres in the Atlantic. It's a spectacular medieval monastery and it also has a unique ecosystem. But what's happening? Rising sea levels, constant heavy rainfall is actually damaging the site. And what the Office of Public Works, the OPW, is doing is looking at the retaining wall and to rebuild and reinforce the retaining wall, and also to install what we call crash decks. And this is to prevent rocks falling from the site and onto the actual monuments, the little beehive huts, and also onto visitors and the staff who work there. It's a seasonal site. So there's a 10-year management plan, and it's a very delicate and sensitive site. It's limited to 180 people a day accessing it, and the season is from May to September. And even at that, it's very limited because it's subject to weather conditions. There's a climate vulnerability assessment being carried out, and this has included all the stakeholders looking at the impact and assessing the risks of climate change. And it's also one of 10 sites in a major international research project. And it's the only site in Europe involved in that project. So this brings me on to the next case study that I'd like to talk about in the Czech Republic. And this is looking at the restoration of green monuments. So I've gone from one that's about sea level rise and rainfall to one that concerns drought. And this really good example is the Prince's Garden in Duchkov. And it's adapting a formal Baroque garden to climate change. It suffers from drought, and there's some wonderful plants and shrubbery growing there. So what they're doing is the National Heritage Institute installing these huge stainless steel tanks to retain water, so the plants have access continually during the year to water. And in fact, I understand that the site was actually closed, the gardens were closed to the public this summer to facilitate the works being carried out. So this is looking at modern techniques, whereas my last case study looked very much at traditional techniques. So going on to another case study, and it's in Sweden. And this is a checklist for property owners for unique church towns. It's run by the County Administrative Board of Norrbotten. And there's a focus on Gammelstead. And you may be familiar with this, you probably are. It's one of the best preserved examples of a church village. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's 900 kilometres north of Stockholm. So we've gone from rainfall to drought to cold, low temperatures. And what they've done is they've prepared a concise brochure for people who own these small little wooden houses are located around a medieval church, stone church. And the checklist, there's a checklist in it. There's advice for the property owners what to do in the event of frost, moss growth, mold and fungus. So it's conserving and it's safeguarding the heritage. So if I could go on to my next case study, please. And this is one of the few intangible cultural heritage case studies that we have in the report, and it's Croatia. It's the art of dry stone walling, and it's the Dragodic Association. And there's a focus here on the vernacular architecture, but especially dry stone techniques in Croatia and the Eastern Adriatic area. And you also find these dry stone walls in parts of France, Wales, Scotland, and Ireland. They're an attraction, they're aesthetically pleasing in their own right, and there's this ongoing harmony with the environment. The skills for dry stone walling is part of the UNESCO representative list of intangible cultural heritage. What can we learn from cultural heritage? And this is a really good example. They play a vital role in preventing floods and avalanches, and they combat erosion, and thus they're enhancing biodiversity. The association is very much involved in training and passing on this very skill, this knowledge onto the next generation. And there's also good focus on volunteering. So in summary, on my next slide is climate change. We know it threatens all forms of cultural heritage. There's a lack of qualitative and quantitative data out there. That's what we found. And even at that, there's even less data about intangible heritage. The main threats are severe precipitation, floods, heat waves, droughts, and sea level rise. And the key messages coming out from these case studies is there's a requirement for a structural, cross-sectoral cooperation at all levels. There's a need for a digital platform for the exchange of knowledge to share the expertise. And also, it's not just at European level that national and regional authorities have to get involved in training and providing incentives. And we also felt there's a need for a full review of an economic cost of the climate change adaptation mitigation solely focusing on cultural and natural heritage. So next slide, and what we're doing is about awareness raising, presenting throughout the EU and beyond. There's an unprecedented interest in this particular report. I presented at the World Travel Tourism Association, presenting here. There's also an interest from the US National Park Service, and our chair, Dr. Lesner, presented in December last year. This is the only report ever to be presented to the Cult Committee of the European Parliament, and that was in October last year. I also presented at COP26, and now, very recently, the British Museum has expressed an interest in the report. So if I could go on to my next slide, please, because I'd also like to mention another OMC, Open Method of Coordination report. And this is where 15 member states got together, again with experts and professionals in the field, and we came up with a new definition for sustainable cultural tourism. I'm not going to read it, it's there, and we will share the presentation after this workshop. And there are 27 case studies in that report. And there's one really interesting one, well, they're all of interest, but there's one relating to intangible cultural heritage, and again, about the whole circular economy and circular tourism. And it's the Dunkirk fishermen in Belgium. These are men, and they are men, they go out on horses to fish for shrimp. And it's also become a huge tourist attraction, and what they've done to relate that to a circular economy. So if you could move on to my next slide, please. My presentation will be available. Here are the links to the report on cultural heritage and climate change, and also to other areas that are of interest in this whole field, to the Sustainable Cultural Tourism Report, and also a study that was carried out looking at the carrying capacity at sensitive cultural heritage sites. So to finish, my last slide, please.
A lot of resources, a lot of materials, a lot of
Yeah,
input.
but if you could move on to my last slide, please. Because why are we doing this? Why are we all here, collected here? We're looking at safeguarding cultural heritage for future generations. And if I could just finish up my presentation with one thought for everybody. The greenest building is the one already built. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Grady. Apologies for this final hiccup in the final slide, but indeed there are a lot of resources, a lot of knowledge that is provided by our cultural heritage. I'm very happy that you stressed also the importance of intangible aspects, the wisdom that's lying in these structures, in these practices, and we are very excited also to have a look at this new definition for sustainable cultural tourism and how it links also to circular approaches. So they are available. You can find the links here. And I would like at this point to thank both Ms. Grady and Ms. Salamutka for their inputs. We get a good idea of what's happening at EU level. And now that we got a sense of the key policy frameworks defining a direction of travel for cultural tourism in Europe, let me turn to Antonia Gravagnolo to ask for a researcher's perspective. So Ms. Grady mentioned the need for data, the need for research and innovation, to gather the data, to understand what's happening, the impacts, but also the costs of this transition, with the active involvement of multiple stakeholders. And as you mentioned, the Horizon Europe programs are one of the pathways to actually bring stakeholders together, start research and innovation actions that generate data insights on the topic. So Antonia is a researcher at the National Institute, Research Council of Italy, the Institute of Heritage Science, and she is the project coordinator of Be.CULTOUR. She has participated in a long process of interaction between 6 Horizon Europe projects who are trying to co-develop policy recommendations for sustainable cultural tourism from the bottom up also. And she's actually just coming back from the Be.CULTOUR Policy Lab, which was held in Chiaca, Sicily, which engaged diverse diverse stakeholders in co-developing policy recommendations. So Antonia, based on what we heard until now, what are the key insights you can share at this stage to actually accelerate this transition of cultural tourism to circularity?
Thank you very much, Stefania, and thanks to the speakers before that have provided a very interesting and very complete overview of the policies and actions ongoing at European level to learn also from each other, to learn from other initiatives, other stakeholders. This is also what we're doing in the Be.CULTOUR project, engaging different pilot areas and also more than 16 transfer regions, transfer organizations at European level, engaging really many different regions in Europe. These are areas also less known and let's say remote, that are rich in cultural heritage and natural values, but clearly less known as destinations. So we are coming back from the last policy lab, engaging the different organizations in Sicily, as Stefania was mentioning, and we have engaged also in a network action with other European funded projects on cultural tourism and sustainability. So we have come out from all the discussions with other projects, with other stakeholders, with some policy recommendations which are now in the draft stage. We have already issued one document shared by the different Horizon funded projects, and actually through the discussion with the different organizations, we have come out with some ideas that can become policy recommendations, also based on examples and case studies. So first of all, we think that developing circular cultural tourism ecosystems can be a very important aspect here, because this is not only, of course, a matter of a circular transition for the single organization, but it needs to build an ecosystem of actors that include different typologies of organizations. So not only enterprises working in the tourism sector, but also the cultural heritage managers, for example, researchers and innovators, DMOs, destination management organizations, and different actors that are also usually not included probably in as tourism stakeholders. For example, agricultural SMEs that provide local products and so on. So in this sense, to go circular, it is quite clear from our interaction in the project that stakeholders' ecosystems at destination levels should be promoted and supported also in terms of policies to reduce energy consumption, increase renewables and self-sufficiency of the destinations, eliminate wastes and especially plastics, reduce water consumption. For example, there are some islands and small places that really have troubles with the water resource, water availability, and all the systems that are able to reduce this water consumption, to reuse the resources, would be really needed to be adopted in destinations. To adopt also, as was mentioned also by the previous speakers, slow and sustainable mobility systems, and of course sharing knowledge and practices. So I'm very happy to hear also about the stakeholder support platform that will be launched next year, and already there are ongoing initiatives at European level that are aimed to share these practices that are really needed to be learned, to be known by small stakeholders, small SMEs, and different ecosystems at European level. So then we have discussed about enhancing culture and nature values. And this is linked not only with cultural tourism, but also with the new European Bauhaus initiative. So the reuse, we have talked about the reuse and regeneration of heritage sites, especially the minor heritage sites, but also cultural and rural traditional landscapes, traditional skills and practices that are aimed at ecosystems maintenance and also enhancing biodiversity, quality of air, soil, water, green areas. As we have discussed that there is no beauty without ecology also. So if we want to enhance this attractiveness in this minor or let's say less known or remote destinations, these are this is something to be done mandatory, let's say. So then still a couple of points that are coming from the discussion. Yes, Stefania, let me know if I have more time.
Thank you. No, I think we can pause here. We have shared again the policy recommendations that have been drafted by these 6 Horizon Europe projects focusing on sustainable cultural tourism. And before the break, and being a bit mindful of everyone's time, I just want to share one burning question in the chat for Miss Anne Grady. So we have a comment saying the compounding impacts and risks presented by climate change and mass tourism for local communities, heritage tourists, and the environment are concerning. Our participant is wondering if there are studies being undertaken on these cumulative impacts. So you mentioned different groups in the European Parliament, but what about this more holistic approach to understanding the risks?
Okay, right. Thank you very much. I actually answered because I have to leave very soon. I actually answered the question in the chat. And what I'm suggesting people will do is have a look at the report and the Cultural Heritage and Climate Change report. And there are links in that report to further research, particularly the 83 case studies. Because I couldn't go through them all. I've only 10 minutes. So I suggest you do that. And also the and I mentioned the new European Bauhaus, and you must also and so I'm suggesting you have a look at the links and see. But those links will also bring on further studies too.
Okay, I'm sorry, you seem to have a connection problem, but I understand also that the findings are very different according to each context. We have different risks, different solutions, and different measures that need to be taken. I think it is one of the key takeaways here, also coming from Ms. Alamutka, that we have different stakeholders and each have to set their own pledges, their own objectives based on their own risks and capacities. So I think we got a very strong input here for discussion in the second round. I would like to thank our speakers for these first inputs and suggest to take a short break now. We will use the next 10 minutes to get some fresh air, but also have a little visual tour of 2 destinations that will be presented in the second half of our event. So you can enjoy the video inspirations shared by the region of Häme in Finland and the Women Association of Rural Larnaca in Cyprus. And we will see you in 10 minutes to explore challenges and opportunities faced by those innovating for circular cultural tourism on the ground. I want to thank Ms. Anne Grady and Ms. Kirsti Alamutka, who needs to move on to other obligations at the European Parliament and the European Commission. And I commit to sharing all these wonderful resources and opportunities with our participants, hoping to enhance stakeholder engagement and bottom-up policy making at EU policy level. Thank you all. Let's take 9 minutes now and meet here at 11 o'clock for our second round of diving into practice. Thank you. And
thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Have a great It's always so nice to take a short trip, even virtually, to the places we're talking about, to see the hands, the eyes, and the smiles of the people that are struggling to valorize their cultural heritage, the tangible, the intangible aspects of it, and see what role they can play in building a sustainable future in these mostly remote rural areas that are trying to find their place. I came back to this visual compass that we have for today. We have already discussed the different aspects of circular cultural tourism, which look both at environmental aspects to restore biodiversity, regenerate natural resources, also recharge green energy and transport, to reuse materials, to relocalize food systems. We're going now to move to look at the other side also of the circle, which has to do with re-engaging communities, reinterpreting heritage, restoring monuments and repurposing built heritage, but also in a general effort to reclaim authenticity, to redistribute tourism flows, and also resist quick gains, to repower sharing economy, to rehumanize digitization. It's not an easy task, and there may not be a very easy definition right now to share, but I think that through this journey and the examples we will discuss, we will try to build a picture of the multiple levels that need to be addressed to reach a more sustainable cultural tourism model. So I hope you had a short but refreshing break so that we can now dive into our second round of discussion dedicated to sharing experiences from practitioners. Let's travel back north to meet Minna Takala, a senior advisor at the Regional Council of Häme in Finland. Currently, she operates as a project manager in an innovation ecosystem. So Antonia stressed the importance of building these ecosystems. They're doing this within Smart Häme, the smart specialization strategy for Häme region. Minna has a versatile background. She has worked at the Aalto University, at Nokia Corporation, at New Jersey Institute of Technology, and even owned a small family business, Lina Bike Shop and Cafe. As a member of ERRIN, the European Regions Research and Innovation Network, Häme region is innovating in the field of cultural tourism, integrating circular economy principles to heritage conservations. Minna Takala will tell us how they're doing it. The floor is yours. Can you hear us? You're also welcome to present your slides. I cannot see you right now, but I hope you're here. Minna Takala? Okay, maybe we need to switch, take the plane back south and have Maria present us first until Ms. Takala is back. So we will look with Ms. Takala the different concepts that are trying to be applied at the regional level. But we've heard how important it is to involve the stakeholders from the private sector, young people with ideas, with an entrepreneurial mindset that want to experiment in new services, new experience in the field of cultural tourism. So Maria told us that there was an initial initiative by the Deputy Ministry of Tourism in Cyprus, which mapped tourism providers, reviving local traditions in the fields of arts and crafts, agri-food production, and gastronomy. Maria saw a business opportunity in that, and she participated in the Be.CULTOUR hackathon organized in Cyprus, and she's currently in an acceleration program to implement her innovative solution called Joy for Culture in the pilot area. We're grateful to have her here with us today as a representative of a new generation of entrepreneurs, embracing circular approaches to local skills, traditions, and materials in order to generate viable futures for rural and remote areas. Maria, you're trying to move beyond the Cyprus brand of, sea, sun, the all-inclusive package that a lot of us know. What are the main challenges that you're facing as a local startup, and what are you trying to achieve with Joy of Culture?
Good morning, everyone. If you allow me to share my presentation on this. Let's hope that I'm sharing my screen. Am I?
You did. Can you do it again, please?
Yes, sure. What about now?
Let's try maybe, Joel, if you can help us to show the slides.
Please, yes.
Yes, sure. I'll try.
So Joy of Culture, it's a digital platform?
Yes, so firstly, I would like to thank ICLEI Europe and the Be.CULTOUR project, which gave us the floor today to present our startup and discuss the opportunities for a circular economy for tourism and beyond. Our startup, as we call it, Joy of Culture, and wishes to become the bridge between those who know the customs and traditions of our homeland and those who wish to experience them through hands-on experience.
Maria, tell us. We will try to present the slides, but you can go ahead.
All right, please. Okay. So a visitor can navigate through our page, choose an experience and booking instantly at the website. After booking, vendors will host the visitors at their workshops and have a lifetime experience at their places. So our platform is focusing on a different approach on the well-established sun and sea business model of the Cyprus tourism. Our core values is to promote the country's unique culture and its rural areas. We would like to promote our island's deep-rooted cultural heritage and at the same time help the environment and the local communities. Our purpose is to help the reforestation of the areas affected by the wildfires a few years ago, and also create work opportunities for people, for young generation to return back to their homelands. Even though the national bodies responsible for the promotion of tourism do a great job, still the sun and sea model is very well established in the island. This might be an opportunity for us, since travelers, as we choose to call visitors, especially after COVID, are more interested on the seven senses experience. They do not wish to stay at a beach or at a hotel for the whole duration of their holidays. They wish to explore the area that they are visiting. They wish to experience the customs and traditions of the land they are visiting. This is where Joy of Culture jumps in. So this is few examples of me visiting these workshops. For example, we are making halloumi cheese and also the very well-known lefkara lace. And also for us, achieving the principles of circular economy and the UN's SDGs is what it drives us to do what we do. After all, our culture is based on the principles of sustainable economy. For example, what is left from a household meal is given to the animals, and then the animals produce milk, and we use this milk to produce halloumi cheese and other milk byproducts. So we have circular economy in our culture anyways. Finally, what I would like to raise is that in an effort for us to raise money to accelerate our startup, we reach numerous EU-funded projects and competitions. And even though our startup won some competitions, the financial aspect of the prize never came to us. So we are hoping that since we have here some people from the European Union, if I'm allowed, I would suggest that the EU must find a way that the money distributed to the member states are promoted either for young entrepreneurship or other forms of business, must reach people and organizations that they really mean business. We understand that rules must be in place. However, most of the times that rules make things complicated, leaving people who really want to do business behind. So my suggestion is that we need to find a way to help these young people trying to establish their own businesses, especially on circular economy, on sustainable development, either in tourism or on any other form of business activity, to establish their businesses and promote what Europe is about. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Maria. We will share in the chat the link to your platform. I understand it's still under, beta testing. And I can also imagine that you're also facing a very harsh competition, right? Because you're trying to connect these authentic experiences, these local people that are reusing materials, redefining intangible cultural heritage, bringing new skills, but also connections at the rural level. But you also have very big competition, right? I mean, we have, Airbnb experiences and all these global platforms that are taking over, even at the most remote local level. So I understand that your need for support also has to do with visibility, promotion, to have the capacity to stand out in the market and make sure that you become the choice for the local traveler that wants to go beyond sea and sun, that wants to experience something authentic and also support circularity. I think we can move to Finland because I feel that you don't feel enough supported in Cyprus, right? I mean, there was a mapping maybe from the ministry, but it seems that we often get a bit lost in translation between the big EU plans, the big EU programs, and the actual access of young people, especially, or people trying to become entrepreneurial in smaller places. And this lack of access is usually facilitated by regional governments, by local authorities who have the responsibility and should aim to provide funding, provide networking and training so that all these local assets can be valorized and used to the benefit of the local people. I think Finland can be a very useful example here. I want to check that Minna Takala is here with us.
Yes, yes.
Are you back? Yes,
I'm
very
back.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, I had to move ahead, but I'm really happy you're here because indeed you're trying to build an innovation ecosystem at regional level, which is supporting those people and bringing them together through funding, training opportunities, integrating circular economy principles to heritage conservation. Tell us a bit more, please, about Häme region, the heartland of happiness, and what you are doing as part of the Smart Specialization strategy to enhance cultural and natural heritage in a sustainable manner.
Thank you so much for inviting us to share our practices. This was really timely, and this theme is really important for us. And actually, it was really nice to be able to hear Maria's challenges and her approach before my presentation, because that is something that we have been trying to do. We have been trying to support the startups and the activities that are ongoing our area. So first I will go through some megatrends and strategic linkages related to our activities. Then some examples of actions, what we have been doing to support the companies, cities and municipalities, and why we are doing benchmarking, and maybe some future steps. Our area is located 1 hour north from Helsinki, and we are in between big cities, and there are remote and rural areas that in our place that we aim to enhance. So the megatrends are looking into ecological reconstruction. We should aim for holistic well-being of people and enhance the strong trust and participation. Related to the economy, this restorative, regenerative economy is extremely important for all of the businesses and all of the activities, but also for tourism and travel. And then the green digital transition provides both opportunities, but then also challenges. Here is our smart specialization strategy. We have 4 different themes we are looking into. So the circular natural resources, sustainable food systems, smart and sustainable design, smart services and processes. And there are cross-cutting themes related to climate actions, digitalization, etc. So you can imagine why we were really pleased when you were asking us to join in this session, because this is very much at the core of our development. And you can find more information from the S3 platform related to our activities. So the examples of the actions we have been carrying out in our region. So we provide support for the existing companies with the sustainability, very Sustainable Travel Finland program. So there are coaching sessions related to sustainability and digitalizations. And we aim for the development projects that have real impact, that the companies are really kind of developing new type of products, new type of services, not only signing in different type of pledges and things like that. They are important, but we need to address the real needs of the companies. Then we are aiming to develop the nature and culture experiences, different type of cultural hiking trails, development of new bicycle routes, and bringing up old arboretums. The trees and the forestry is very much in our cultural heritage. And then we are benchmarking with the concrete actions from other regions in Finland, but also from other countries. We use extensively open data. This is example of a Häme photo bank. We use Flickr for that purpose. There are about 3,000 pictures that are shared there. There are several ongoing projects and projects that have already kind of finished, but we aim that they would operate as openly as possible and use and utilize the new kind of digital tools so that we could be more efficient in our ways of working. There are, for example, this Trello board that is sharing information related to the different projects, different strategic themes, also funding opportunities and the different events in the area. And the intention is to enhance the collaboration between the different projects, but then enhance the collaboration with the companies as well. Benchmarking, encouragement for action. There are kind of national benchmarking with the Western Lakeland regions, our neighbors who are doing this, but then we are looking for new initiatives that are addressing the challenges related to climate change, sustainable forests and travel, biodiversity and cultural heritage. And just recently there was this innovation camp at Vaikonloma that was kind of the new type of approach, inviting the local people to participate and think about their activities, what they could do in the municipality level related to these important themes. And then we have been looking to Iceland, especially related to nature and cultural development in a sustainable way. Icelandic people are really, really ethical related to these themes. But then they have excellent startup practices related to tourism and how do they support young entrepreneurs related to activities in Icelandic setting. They don't have huge amount of resources, but they have been really efficient in their ways of working. Our next steps, they include the use of data, open data, and in the development of sustainable travel related to services and experiences. Then the development of cultural heritage routes and services, combining the culture and nature. And then coaching and for sustainability and digitalization that continues. And we are doing all this in close collaboration with people from companies, associations, municipalities, and educational and research institutions. Just yesterday, we had this EU Cultural Heritage Day at Hammack Castle. And it is a national call for action for cultural heritage route development. And this was done by the Finnish Heritage Agency. And we were so happy that they selected our city, our place, our region to start up this activity. 50 people participated and we're sharing good practices. So thank you for the opportunity to share our activities, and I would be delighted to tell, of course, more, but now the time is limited.
Thank you. Thank you
so much.
It's always refreshing to see regional authorities that are embracing their role as facilitator and as connector, not just to understand the territory and bring the people together, but also have this extrovert approach to learn from others, from neighboring regions, from international best practices. I think you're doing a great job in connecting these dots and creating an ecosystem that's really about mutual learning and support. This is not happening in a lot of countries, we know it for sure, and we're very happy to have this example from Finland that's both combining the cultural and natural heritage in a holistic approach, right? Using these circular models and really enhancing these hidden treasures at the local level. I'm quite inspired to travel to Finland, I must say. I hope you're also discovering new destinations and ideas for your local contexts. So we see the importance of the regional level. I think local governments and especially city administrations have an equally important role to play in this transition, and translocal partnerships are of paramount importance. So I think it's timely to introduce Gianluca Saba, who is Head of International Relations at the office, Head of International Relations Office at the Municipality of Genoa in Italy. And he's here wearing two hats. So he's representing a city, the city of Genoa, which is also developing very interesting tourism strategies, but he's also a co-coordinator of the Sustainable Tourism Thematic Partnership of the Urban Agenda for the EU. So this partnership focuses on the specific issues related to tourism in cities as a crucial component of sustainable development of urban economies, and trying to enable better regulation, better funding, and better knowledge for sustainable tourism. So Mr. Saba, can you tell us a bit more about the purpose and activities of this partnership? I understand it's not only limited to cities, so we can also explore here how different stakeholders can get involved. Tell us more, and welcome.
Yes, exactly, Stefania. First of all, thank you for the invitation, and hello to you, to ICLEI, and to the other panelists, to Mina and Maria. I visited Finland last year, especially Lapland, because I've been in Rovaniemi. So there was something inspiring in your presentation and also in the one by Maria. Well, see, yes, actually, I'm here, first of all, as a representative of the new Partnership of Urban Agenda on Sustainable Tourism. It's a new one, as I said, so we are more or less at the middle of our path, of our mandate. We share the coordination of this partnership together with the city of Galati in Romania. And just to explain why we decided to apply as chair of this very important partnership, it has been a sort of follow-up of a former URBAC project on sustainable tourism, tourist-friendly cities. That was probably the first URBAC network specifically dedicated to this topic. We were the coordinator, and we thought that the perfect follow-up of this wonderful experience was to try to be involved actively in the Urban Agenda Partnership. As you said, Stefania, it's a multi-level partnership. So we are there together with the member states, with regional governments, with other municipalities, of course, with DMOs, with provinces like the Diputación de Barcelona, for example, and many general directorates of the European Commission. So we have the DG Growth, the DG Regio, of course, and the DG Culture, Education and Culture. Basically, we build our work on also on the previous work of the other partnerships, for example, the Urban Agenda Partnership on Culture, that it was definitely quite connected and linked with our work. So we are preparing our documents, also making the most of the former experiences. We published the orientation paper. I seen that somebody in the chat put the link. I invited the colleagues to have a look at the orientation paper, because it's the first output that we have to produce during the work of the Urban Agenda. You mentioned better regulation, better funding, better knowledge. These are the pillars of the work that we do. It's the Urban Agenda. It's an innovative tool that the European Commission launched to support the general directorates with the bottom-up approach. So trying to not to introduce new regulation, starting from the better regulation, but, for example, elaborating recommendations, suggestions, positions of the cities, of the regions, of the all partners in this very important topic of the urban tourism, of the sustainable tourism. Of course, from my point of view, is the urban tourism, but more in general is sustainable tourism. So how to implement the regulations that are already existing, how to better understand, how to better enforce them in our territories. In our experience, the most important problem related to sustainable tourism is not only the over-tourism, but the balanced approach. In my opinion, the balance is the key word, the key concept. So how to combine, how to create a fruitful balance between the needs of the residents that are and the citizens that are absolutely important, and also the potential in terms of economic development that the tourism has, because don't forget, when during the pandemic we arrived at a zero level of tourists, and what was the impact in that moment. So the research of the balance is a sort of fil rouge that we have in all our work. So the first pillar, exactly, better regulation, better funding. We work on the possibility to systematize and to maximize the opportunities that the existing funds offer to tourism projects, because for the moment, as far as we know, the European Commission has not developed a specific framework program for tourism, but there are many strands, many possibilities in several programs. And within this group of the Urban Agenda, we try to focus on the most important possibilities that we have. Many of our cities are working in these days on the European Urban Initiative, for example. One of the main priorities of this very important call for proposal is sustainable tourism. And that was exactly what we are trying to do. Better knowledge, it's also very important because I think that most of our colleagues here attending this event this morning are part of networks. So the exchange of best practices, of experiences, is absolutely part of this game, because we have to rationalize the incredible amount of experiences that our cities, our region, our provinces, our government have in this field. And I finish mentioning that after the orientation paper, we are now in the phase of the development of the action plan that is expected to be presented beginning of spring of next year. And so we are recollecting proposals by the partners. Next week, in a couple of weeks, I will have the meeting of the partnership in Sevilla, and we will discuss about the potential actions by several working groups that we created. And I would like to underline that there is one working group focused on environment, one on economic development, one on unbalanced growth. So the economic, the environmental, and the social dimension are the three main dimensions we have to take into account. And within the environmental group, the circular economy has, of course, a very important place.
Thank you, Mr. Saab. We see that this interconnection, I hope these groups do not work in silos, right? There needs to be always this cross-sectoral collaboration and holistic approach. And this is the big challenge that all of us are facing. I was very happy to hear about your aim to facilitate navigation in the funding streams. We heard from Maria that this is often very challenging for local stakeholders. There's a lot happening, but it's often difficult to navigate the different regulations, and to have a partnership on tourism and on sustainable tourism is definitely a place to go for those looking for guidance, looking also for inspiration and knowledge. So I'm now tempted to actually pick your brain as a local government official, right? Because you're also working locally with your urban stakeholders to showcase the unique cultural heritage of Genoa. And I'm wondering how, in a practical level, you are embracing circularity in your cultural tourism. So do you have an example you can share of how you are experiencing these new models locally?
Yes, when we invited me, I thought about which could be the best example to share with the colleagues today. And I decided to talk a few minutes about this wonderful experience that we have here in Genoa, that is the so-called Rolli Days. It's a huge event, it's a major event where we open, and I explain why I say open, the historical buildings included in the list of UNESCO heritage that are more or less, if I remember well, around 50 buildings of the 16th century, so of the Renaissance, when Genoa was a maritime republic and the noble families were probably the richest families in the world. And they had incredible buildings. A few of them are public, like the City Hall, like the Chamber of Commerce headquarters, some museums, but most of them are private, so are still owned by the families. And it's important to understand that the open days of the Rolli is a way not only for tourists, but also for the citizens to reappropriate our cultural heritage, because it's not there, it's it's something that it's owned by the families, but it's the heritage of the municipality. Together with this opening of the palaces, public visits, of course, guided visits that are organized, we develop a strategy of communication, of marketing, where we include, and that is, in my opinion, the most interesting part, include the citizens becoming ambassadors of their own city around the world. So they take over, for example, the social media channels of the municipality for the weekend. And in this way, they can promote all over the world our incredible beauties of this heritage. I try to show now a slide just to let you know what is. And they become, in this way, ambassadors together with the professional influencer that we involve and engage in this process. But from the social point of view, it's a way to understand how is important the cultural heritage, the important to respect, the importance of education. We have examples in Italy of other cities that are forced to launch campaign of education for tourists to respect the cultural heritage. And I think this is an important point in today's discussion. I conclude saying that we had to create the digital edition of the Rolly Days during the pandemic for a couple of years, and we experiment this social media strategy also with the beautiful videos. These videos are in any case active even now that we have come back to the more normal life in presence. Then the next weekend, not this one, the next one, there will be the Rolly Days. In general, there are twice per year, one in spring and one in autumn. This time we had 3 times because we hosted the Ocean Race Grand Finale, the big competition of sailing. So we hosted a special edition of the Rolly Days for the guests that came for the finale. I try to show, but more or less.
It's okay. We can also try to find a link to put in the chat. So, or if you can write in the chat exactly how you spell Rolly Day, so we can look for it, have a look at videos and materials.
Maybe I can also share in the chat the link. It's easier, and of course I'm here available for potential questions and whatever you need. Thank you so much, Stefania.
Thank you for stressing the importance of involving the local community in the implementation, in the decision-making processes, to also share the benefits from this tourism in knowledge, in new experiences, and in local pride, I would say, because by becoming active participants and stakeholders, tourism can become more community-driven, sensitive to the needs and aspirations of local people, to build a stronger social cohesion and this sense of pride in the cultural heritage that we have seen can be very transformative and very uniting in the local context. I would like to take a moment to ask if there are any burning questions. Antonia, if there's any feedback, something in particular that you want to highlight in relation to the cases that we have presented, or anybody else, Maria, from our panelists, to come back to the initial, let's say, visual guide that I proposed. I will share it again because we've seen a lot of very interesting examples that are exactly highlighting these different approaches and the different criteria that we have to take in mind when we speak of circular cultural tourism. I saw that somebody asked for a definition. I think it's still under progress. This discussion is part of this exploration of what circular cultural tourism means. But we have seen the importance of revealing hidden assets, of reusing skills, reusing materials, reusing even stories and monuments to reclaim authenticity and revalorize local identities. I will just open the floor. I'm also having a look at the chat for any burning questions before we move to our keynote listener to wrap up today's discussion. Maria, Antonia, or Mina, are you still here? Is there anything you want to highlight or share? Maria, please.
Well, it's not a suggestion or a question, but it's just a saying that, to my opinion and what I'm trying to transfer to the locals that I'm meeting, is that you are the ambassadors of the country. You are the ambassadors of the culture, of the heritage, of our identities. When somebody is visiting your workshop, you're not just Mrs. Maria having this workshop. You're actually the representative of our country to this person, to this foreigner who chooses to be in Cyprus at this particular time. So it's not just me showing off my culture. It's beyond that. It's I would say a foreign policy, a foreign diplomacy.
Culture, in a way, in practice.
Yes, culture. Yeah, definitely. And this is what I'm trying to give to these people when I'm talking and trying to convince them, let's say, to join our platform, is that, you know what, you're not just a person living in a village somewhere in Cyprus. You're beyond that. You're a diplomat, and this is what you have to recognize for yourself. This is my input.
Indeed, and this is how exactly why circular tourism is so powerful in fostering Europeanization, because it is these connections, right? This exchange of cultural insights, of knowledge at the very local and personal level that make us also feel part of a greater whole, of a European identity, a European culture that has a lot of, common values, but also a diversity that needs to be highlighted in these experiences. Antonia.
Yeah, thank you, Stefania, for putting this nice wrap-up of the concept of a circular cultural tourism, which was also one of the questions in the chat. I've put a glossary that we have started to create at the Be.CULTOUR project to give initial definition that are ongoing under exploration, as the final definition will be the summary of a structured discussion and interpretation of this term, circular economy and cultural tourism. And also I would like to comment briefly about the experiences that we have seen today that are really inspiring and interesting and are related to a process of innovation. Some of them that have started at the local level, in the local areas, engaging different stakeholders, engaging young people, innovators that are able to valorize their heritage, what they care also in their country, in their land. So it is also important from the point of view of the project to facilitate access to finance to these small initiatives and bottom-up initiatives, also because they engage different types of organizations, such as social enterprise or startups that generate social impact that are not in always digital or tech startups, but they can be social innovation startups, community cooperatives. So all these small-scale initiatives could be really relevant at the local level in the small areas and the remote destinations that can go circular by engaging and creating this network and these ecosystems of innovation at the local level.
Indeed, Antonia, this is also related to a comment that we have in the chat about the importance on one hand of financing, but also the idea that circular cultural tourism is not just about providing finance, but also about enhancing this flow, this reuse of materials to become more, self-sustaining and making investment more attractive. Our participant here is asking if you are aware of any examples whereby circular and collaborative finance is applied in tourism to support a transformational pathway. So to look also at new financing models that are also circular. I don't know if you want to comment on that. And
yes, briefly, I can comment on this, and thank you for the question. Actually, the project is launching a financial initiative to support these small scale projects at the local level. This initiative is at the moment available in Italy. As experimentation, and this is a pledge fund. So it is a new fund established that we're launching within the project that will support innovative projects for circular and sustainable cultural tourism, and will also collect the interest of different possible investors. So we're talking about the private and also public investors that could join together and support some of these initiatives that will also receive strategic consultancy and support for developing their projects. So we are trying to transfer and replicate the process of innovation development that we have in the Be.CULTOUR project, also with the hackathon organized in Brussels that helped to support and develop a lot of very interesting initiatives that are growing and implementing their projects at the moment in the pilot areas.
Mm-hmm. Great. We've also have here a reference to this pledge fund that people can have a look at. I think, Mr. Saba, this is also a note for you and for your team working on economy to really explore these circular and collaborative finance models for tourism, to go beyond, this direct funding or, EU funding programs, but also to see how we can combine different resources and make most of the capital that is available in each place. I see a question from the audience. Nicola, if you want to take the word, you're welcome to ask a question. Let's see if he or she is here. Nicola, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
Okay, hello. How are you? Everything okay? Good morning. Happy to be with you, hearing from you. Just make a simple remark from Portugal, in a city that's a little bit north of Lisbon. It's called Caldas da Rainha. I'm running an NGO, and just making a very quick remark on supporting the interventions of Kirsty Alamutka and Hein Grady, because they really focus on the importance and the focus of the EU in reaching local actors. We, as being local actors, we're always trying to reach for new financing models. That's our main difficulty, and it's very good to hear that on a EU fund in EU level that there's that concern on trying to reach to the bottom up positioning, because on a local dimension, what we feel in our region is that stakeholders are really concerned and interested in supporting local sustainable initiatives. It's just a simple remark. We're looking for really new financing models that because there's a lot of actors in our region trying to reach a positioning where they can access to different financing models. We're on just to make a point, we're now trying to reach for the new European Bauhaus lab. That seems to be a very nice and good practical strategy, so that can create a more local level of listening and intervening in civil society. That's it.
Thank you.
And thank you for the opportunity.
I know it can be very challenging when you're working on the ground to understand also this multi-level approach.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are also support systems at the regional level in Portugal, at the national level, but always keeping in touch with the EU arena and the opportunities there can be very empowering. So thank you for your contribution. I think Mina Takala has a response to that or comment.
Yes, from our perspective, we have been trying to find the new ways of working together with the companies in a really, really practical level. Because how can we really support their sustainability transitions, but also business development? Otherwise, they won't survive. You need to be sustainable in an economical, environmental, social, and in a cultural way. And so we have been aiming to create programs that are very kind of built based on the needs of the companies, also their business development, and how can we help. And there is a kind of a program that lasts 1 year, and the companies are selected there based on their own proposals, totally new kind of business ideas, totally new products, new services related to the sustainability, related to tourism. And then there are coaching sessions throughout the whole year. And then there's an event at November when there is a pitching competition. And it's not only for that you get the glory out of that competition, you also get money. Kind of very good amount of money to support these activities. But throughout the whole year, there are different types of coaching sessions. Also, companies kind of support peer-to-peer learning, helping each other. And then kind of at the end of a program, they do a kind of a pitching, and the judges are then deciding who will get the funding for the next step development. And we try to be as close to the company needs as possible.
So this, I guess, requires a constant communication, mapping, and connection between the local stakeholders. And I think this is the role of the regional authorities. I'm very happy to have such an example with us today, because you are, let's say, between the big plans, the big strategies and programs that come from the EU and the national governments, and then you are the ones that are mediating and facilitating action on the ground. So it's key always to have people that are open-minded and also aware of what is going on both locally and at the European level, to be able to channel strategies to have this trickle-down effect, not just of funding, but also of these new approaches, new values, and new practices that have to accelerate the transition to circular cultural tourism. I am trying to be a bit mindful of the time and give enough time to our keynote listener to give a bit of a feedback and wrap up of today's discussion. So I will give the floor to Gosia Zvikla. She's my colleague from ICLEI, and as we promised, she has been working in the backstage silently with an illustrator to give us a bit of a visual and artistic wrap-up of today's session. So Gosia, I will share the screen and let's see what you have come up with.
Thank you very much, Stefania, and also thank you, Menek, for support in this final step of this session. And first of all, also thank you all for this insightful session and contribution on circular cultural tourism and the role of heritage in changing habits and also being innovative during this ongoing climate emergency. We have explored the intersections between sustainability, culture and tourism at the various levels, at the level of the policy, at the level of research and innovation, but also at the level of the practitioners who are implementing the innovation on the ground. Thank you very much, Maria, for your insightful voice on that. What I have heard together with you in the last almost 2 hours is very much related to what Gianluca Saba mentioned at some point, the issue of balance. And this was also related to the integration. Actually, I would like to structure this last voice around the topic of harmony. And the justification for talking about harmony as the leading keyword for the circular and sustainable cultural tourism is the fact that there is no culture without nature, and as Antonia mentioned, no beauty without ecology. I fully agree, and the harmony helps us to bring various concepts together. The first one I would like to highlight is the co-creation and learning. Perhaps it seems obvious, but we can approach it also from a new angle. We can use the indicators that are there. We can use the skills, also intangible skills that are part of the heritage. And we can also use practical methods like benchmarking that Mina Takala mentioned. We can learn from the others. There are many examples, various examples. They are available. And this is also the advantage of digitalization, that we have access to all of these materials, to the information. And you will also get all the links, by the way, so you don't need to write it down. We will share with you all we know so far, and we will be happy if you could implement it in your daily businesses as well. The other issue I would like to highlight is the existing knowledge, case studies, available building blocks, I would say. And you also often refer to the new European Bauhaus, which is mainly translated via its values, but these are also the working principles of transdisciplinarity that was addressed during the speeches, multi-level engagement addressed as well, and the participatory processes. So I would say also New European Bauhaus could be one of the driving forces of the circular cultural tourism. And the last main point that we arrive at when we started our travel, or around the question why, when, and how we travel in this post-pandemic period, is the issue of holistic approach. This could be also understood as the local ecosystems that Antonia mentioned, including SMEs, innovators, but also the agriculture. Maria also provided us with examples on how the circular model, rooted in a very local culture, can be explained with the circular approach to food and waste. To dive deeper into particular voices, we could move on to the next slide. And here I would like to highlight as well what the three first speakers shared with us. Kirsti Alamutka highlighted the political aspects and the political background, also referring to the transition path for tourism that was consulted and co-created. She clearly said it's us that contributed to this strategic document, and this could be also us in shaping future strategies that would help us to build resilience, to build knowledge, to share knowledge, and to also use our skills. We are now in the middle, perhaps in the end of the year of the skills that should for some reason last 2 years. So the skills are also an important issue to be mentioned. And we learned from already amazing examples, case studies of practices. I would say also very advanced practices, but I would also consider them an inspiration. And already also highlighted that this is not only us affected by the climate emergency. Us people are affected in the same way and in the same extent as the cultural side. We may disappear as the species, and also what we have elaborated so far as cultural heritage can disappear as well. We need to protect both, and we can take inspiration from the field of culture and heritage, because artists and people from this sector are not only enthusiastic and creative and innovative, they also are courageous to try out something new. And that's why we are here together to discuss perhaps radical sometimes practices, but I would say also inspirational practices. And from Antonia, we heard also about the background of the Be.CULTOUR project. I can tell you as an insider in this project that the problem of defining circular tourism is something that we discuss very often. And what I have learned also being part of this amazing endeavor is that this is considered a bit more than sustainable cultural tourism. Circular cultural tourism, our pilots, our mirrors said, it's more difficult, but it's also more challenging in a good way, that we can reuse resources, and we can consider the entire journey, not only what happens as part of the mobility, but also what happens on the ground. Thank you, Stephanie. I understand this suggestion. We can move forward to the next slide because we have a little time left. When it comes to the last three voices, we have also learned a lot, variety and various perspectives. We have insights into local culture in Cyprus and the local courage as well of the people there. What I have heard from Maria as well is not only beyond tourism, is not only beyond grow, as addressed recently in September in the European Parliament during a big conference, it's also beyond individuals. It's not only Maria with her dreams, ambitions, this is far more. This is communities, this is part of ecosystem, this is us with nature, with more than human world, which means that from the methodological point of view, we can think about human-centered approach, but as well about life-centered approach, which is also addressed in the European Bauhaus framework. We have also learned from Mina Takila about the smart strategies. I think this is highly important to highlight this transdisciplinarity of producing in traditional way foods and local examples of cultural heritage, tangible and intangible, local crafts, but also data smartification, what can be achieved based on new technologies which are developing rapidly, helping us, but also producing digital carbon footprint, which also requires some awareness. And I think the example from Finland shows how to do it in the very inspirational way. Also, we have heard about the benchmarking. I have mentioned this before, and amazing examples from Iceland. I think we can learn from the others as well and benefit from good practices that are already implemented. And what I also heard from Gianluca Saba was the focus on urban partnerships as a unique models. What we have also heard today is that the urban partnerships needs to be in harmony with the rural development in the circular way, because we are all in the same ecosystems, all benefiting from joint actions, and we need to take those actions. Thank you very much. It was fascinating to listen to you and to work with Mene to find a visual language for that. So this is just the beginning, and I'm looking forward to work further on those topics based on your contributions and voices, also from the chat in the Be.CULTOUR guidebook Beyond Tourism that will be launched next year. Thank you very much, and I pass over to Stefania.
Thank you, Gosia. It was quite a challenging task to wrap up and visualize some key insights from today's event. I'm very happy to see you all still here. We will, however, be quite strict with our time frame. I would like to thank you, to thank first of all the partners of Be.CULTOUR, the participants, and of course the speakers of today's event. I think what we have demonstrated is that cultural heritage can be both an enabling but also an empowering force for circular tourism, showing a direction of travel in the pursuit of sustainability. The wisdom that is embedded in our cultural landscapes, our historic monuments, our traditional knowledge and skills, our stories and legends, but also the biocultural diversity of each place, hold the key to fixing the broken relationship with the planet that we mentioned at the beginning, and to restore the life-nurturing forces of our communities. We've seen that when our tangible and intangible cultural assets are treated as a common good, and when the responsibility for their stewardship is shared, then they have the power to drive transformation, to unleash creativity, shift mindsets, and influence behaviors, leading to this change of mainstream paradigm for tourism, but also for our economies and society as a whole. We hope that today's discussion has inspired you all to apply, test, experiment with a circular economy approach as a new conceptual framework for guiding a sustainable, resilient, and future-proof recovery of the travel and tourism industry. There is a famous song by Leonard Cohen saying that there is a crack in everything, and this is how the light goes in. I think we can treat our cultural heritage as this guiding light for achieving a resilient and sustainable tourism ecosystem based on circularity, based on a human-centered, but also a life-centered approach. Thank you very much for joining us today. Enjoy your lunch directly after the breakfast at Sustainabilities, and stay in touch with Be.CULTOUR and our channels to spread the word, to deepen our knowledge and our connection for circular cultural tourism. Thank you all. Have a great day.